Hey guys, Allison here. Well, today I want to talk about something a little bit more serious. Psychological diagnoses. We throw them around a lot sometimes in society, calling this one's a narcissist, this one's borderline, whatever it is. And sometimes it's almost kind of become part of our colloquial speech. But we have to be very careful when labeling people, especially if you have a child in therapy or a young adolescent. Obviously, there's a place for diagnoses. So think about it in the medical world, right? Do you have strep throat, or do you have a different bacteria? It's important to understand and know that so we know how to treat it. But when it comes to the psychological diagnoses, and there's all different types. There's mood disorders, there's personality disorders, there are psychotic disorders. There's a whole bunch of them. And you can have more than one, right? You can have a personality disorder and also have an anxiety disorder. So it's important for the clinician to kind of have an idea what we're working with. And when it comes to, let's say, insurance reimbursements, they have to put a diagnosis code. But one of the things that I find problematic is that you are not your diagnosis. And I'm going to say it again. You are not your diagnosis. There may be a certain diagnostic criteria that may fit, but we have to be careful because there's a lot of different ways of going about treating it. Usually there's some early wound, early trauma, something that we need to get to in order to find healing. And I think if we focus too much on the diagnosis and own that label, it can be very detrimental. So like I said, there's a need for it to kind of have an idea what we're working with and to define it. But I think that sometimes it can really work against us. Give you an example. Many years ago, this must be probably 30 years ago, a couple brought their young daughter to me, and I told them I did not have any expertise with children. However, they convinced me to take it on. This young girl, at I think even in preschool, had been diagnosed with developmental disorders and other things. And she was now in a special school where they only saw her as her diagnosis. So there was no room for her really to improve. So again, not having a lot of experience with children, I didn't go about labeling her. I just looked at like what she was presenting, my own instincts, and helped her to kind of feel her emotions, regulate her behaviors. And she did really, really well. She was able to be mainstreamed in a regular school after that, and she did really well. Now, not toot my own horn there. I'm just saying that by not labeling her, it was very helpful to me to just see her as a person and help her to deal with the emotions she was struggling with, to kind of help the parents to know how to deal better with her. So I think it's important because I think so many people are walking around with a label these days. And even if it's a personality disorder, as they say, those can be healed with the right approach and the right therapy. And like I said, there are different approaches that can be used by different clinicians. So sometimes if, let's say, somebody has a psychological issue going on and you're not finding help with a particular therapist, then you may want to look at other types of therapy that might be more helpful. Sometimes people need trauma treatment, something like EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing can be very helpful. Internal family systems is another method that has been super helpful for trauma and for, kind of reintegrating like different parts of ourselves that are not working together very well. So I think it's important to not wear your diagnosis or even to put too much attention on it. I will say though that if you are going through insurance, it's important to know that a diagnosis code has to be rendered and it will always be there. So especially if you're bringing a child or an adolescent for therapy, just ask you to think about that because there's a label that might follow them the rest of their lives. Now I understand it's expensive, so many times we do need to go through insurance reimbursements. But I would talk to the therapist and ask them what they're going to be putting on as a diagnosis and why. Because I think it's important that we don't, especially with young children and adolescents, put labels on them that they can never escape from. Because ultimately, we really, as clinicians, we want to work on healing the underlying cause, like what really is at the root of this. And unfortunately, so many people now are just prescribing medications to manage symptoms. We're not getting to the root cause. Now, there may be some times where medications can be helpful. We do also want to look at like nutritional, lifestyle issues that can be playing in that's exacerbating the condition before we necessarily go with medication. But again, medication is only really was meant to remediate some of the symptoms so we could do the cognitive processing that's needed to get to that original wound and healing. So again, really important, you are not your diagnosis. There is always hope. There is healing. God is the ultimate healer. And therapists really were the instruments that God gives us knowledge and, education, hopefully instincts also, and be open to the Holy Spirit to really help us to understand what's going on and how we can be helpful. So I hope you find that helpful. If you did, please like and share the video. If there's somebody who needs to hear this, please share it. Share it on social media if you find that helpful too. God bless you.